Okay. Time to listen further. Three examples. One might be simpler to grasp. And we are penetrating the core of a hearing or of listening. You'll take it to the next level in a way from I-57 to your 43. Just a story. And maybe we'll be reunited in the 55th. So perhaps three examples, okay? One. You hear me now, right? You hear it. And you understand it, right? Hi. You doing well? Do you understand the English language? Example one. We're penetrating through the different causes of the sound. Three examples, okay? This is the first one. And the first one is what humans might call English, in the English language. Okay? I'll try to portray you a level of understanding. Yeah? So you can see what you see and hear what you hear, okay? And the first example is this English language, that for X time I heard. Oh, 2 minutes 45, 6, 7, 8, 9, 50. You heard. And yeah, it can be simple. Yeah, 1 plus 1 equals 2. Are you doing well? Did you eat today? Hydrogens and oxygens and molecules. And we're penetrating the different causes, okay? So the first example is this English, that as you hear, can you observe within yourself, the phenomena of knowing, the phenomena of not knowing, the phenomena of not knowing, the phenomena of knowing, the phenomena of knowing, the phenomena of not knowing. And the first layer is listening to this outer layer of the English language. Layers can be reversed. Second example. And there is a sound. And I'm going to turn to what's called the Hebrew language. Are you paying attention? Okay? Is it time to pay attention? So as I go to the Hebrew language, can you pay attention to the different causes, to the different layers of your knowing, of how mind, brain, how we would like to call it, how we agree to call it, operate? In the first example, we talked about the English language. Second example is still a sound of a language, but the refined sounds, well, they're actually rough, but the refined sounds are unknown. And before I turn to the Hebrew language as an example, can you simply pay attention to anything? Not to the result, the fruits of the action, not to the knowing itself, which will be replaced by not knowing, or the not knowing that will be replaced by knowing. Okay? And when you pay attention, you can see and clearly grasp how it operates. And again, we are filling emptiness with irrelevant question. But once one grasps this art of hearing, listening, and stays present, pays attention to that, something is happening. You will get it. You will get it. So, are you paying attention? We're going to turn to the Hebrew language, and can you just pay attention to your neurons firing, to whatever it is that we call that thing that is observed and operates, that will serve you and serves you in the communication with people. Yes? That will serve you and serves you and have served you, or has served you in the communication with people. It already operates, because what I speak already in the first example of the English language that you understand, we're still in the first example. Something happens to the tone of your muscles. Something happens to the tonus of your brain. Something that you are aware of. And when you will be aware of it internally, you will be aware of it externally, and it will continue this process of what you might call oneness, or what Ra said, it's just the other side of the coin, the illusion of our separateness, where you make decisions on your own, and you take the food on your own. Most people are not ready to realize that when you eat something, I eat that thing as well. Yes? I'm bound to digest that. But what Ra described, we're living in the illusion of our separateness. And we are the cell that in the totality, in the organisms, yes, it's nice to speak about oneness, yeah? But let's poke two fingers in your ears and then talk about, yeah, if you get what I mean. Or when you have that, what you might call, people might describe as colitis, yeah? And my illusion of separateness would say, I don't have that. My sensation is different. So we're playing with this coin, we're tossing it in the air, it flips, and we're allowing ourselves to be greatly fooled, because it does something to the tonus of the brain. Now, so the English language, first example, and not with everyone I can talk even in this language. The second example is when I will turn now, yeah? Some of the things you will speak to people. They will look at the first example like it's maybe the second, and I will go to the third example. But the first example, yeah? And that's part of art of communicating. We don't need to think about it or do it. It's just happening. When Fabian is open and to eat, she's closed. When someone, it's just how we interpret. But that's not the main theme of this transmission. So if you can stay with the presence of again, whatever you pay attention to, because what you pay attention to, I pay attention to. And what I pay attention to, you pay attention to. And from simple, we dived into the complex. And from the complex, I dive into the simple. And I've discovered the art of not trying to understand, but listening. And there is something phenomenal in that I transmit to you now. And we've got different, separateness, uniqueness, oneness, how you like to call it, yeah? So, since I don't request to you to be anything but who you are, I can only be present to what I experience, and then what you and then just see the movement. Okay? I don't know why I speak like that, but I assume it is necessary because it is being spoken like that. So, as I turn to Hebrew, and you've got this quality of simply being present, and even if no asking, because you talk to me, I'm present to that for a while, not just you. Someone comes and talks in Hindi or in any other language that I don't understand. That's the King Solomon's quality. If you'll be able to be present to that, you realize you are not just speaking oneness, but you do speak all the languages of the people of every consciousness, and you don't have to prove that. You will know that. So the second example, if I go and I talk to you, because then later you will be able to, even the other side of the coin, or the speaker, to speak that thing to people, with an individual mind and so on. So the second option, second example, after we've gone through 11 minutes, 49, 51, 52 of English, now as I will turn to Hebrew, can you pay attention to what happens inside of you? And if I'll give it as an exercise, I don't know if it's an exercise, it's just a state of being, to see this phenomena of you trying to understand and follow and know, and whatever your form follow structure concept is, or experience. I'm really giving it some time before I turn to Hebrew. So this experiment is clear. In a language you interpret as, and already something is happening in your body. And we're not in a hurry, of course, to anywhere. Because when I will speak in Hebrew, something else will happen in your cells. Again, and I had a more, quote-unquote, more fluent language, I might have, Hindi or something. But at my disposal at this moment, externally, I have Hebrew at my disposal. And also, again, English. And the third language, which I'll demonstrate to you in a moment. And it already exists. But so the second, just, can you pay attention to this feeling emptiness with irrelevant question, to this phenomenon that happens as I will turn to Hebrew? And I don't know if you can pay attention to the head center, to the mind itself more. I don't know, because it's not really up to you where the attention will go. And then if you can stay as I turn to Hebrew with that, because there will be sounds that it will only appear on the surface that you don't understand. But I remind you, you speak all the languages. I trust it, because I speak all the languages. Yes? And we're in the quarter of that. The moon is in the quarter of the mind. So, whatever is coming. And my Mercury is on this quarter. And my Sun-Earth personality is there. And interesting that your moon is there. So part of what may be considered as genetic continuity. Now the thing is that if you'll just be able to stay with this, not knowing, nothing, just it will do something. Form follows structure. What's that? And or structure follows form. So, ready? אז עכשיו, כשאני מדבר בעברית, את מבינה כל מילה שלי, אבל את, לצורך העניין, נזקקת לסמוך על זה שאת מבינה הכל. אני לא אעשה את זה ארוך כמו האנגלית. האנגלית הייתה הכנה, כי הטונוס של השרירים רפוי, כי את מבינה אנגלית. אבל הטונוס של השרירים, של שרירי המיינד, לא רפואים. כי אין הבנה, אין ידיעה. וברגע שנצליח להרפות את טונוס השרירים במיינד, כשאנחנו לא מבינים, לא יודעים, או לא, אין היגיון ממה שמדברים אלינו, אנחנו נגלה עולם ומלואו. ונדרש להראות לאחר שיכול לסמוך, כמו תינוקות שפשוט נשארים נוכחים לאנרגיה עד שהם לומדים את השפה. עכשיו זה היה בערך דקה של עברית, אבל את הטון של הצליל שלי, את שומעת את כל הצלילים, אבל המיינד אין לו סבלנות הרבה פעמים. Okay? זאת הדוגמה השנייה. Okay, and now with the interpretation, okay? Ready to continue. So the second example was about a minute or so of Hebrew. Now, what I actually spoke in Hebrew, you understood. Exactly. But exactly. Now, what I also spoke in the Hebrew is that about the tonus of the muscles of the mind. The tonus of the muscles of the mind. And you can be aware and pay attention to the tonus of the muscles of the mind when it encounters a sound. I'll talk just now about sounds. It encounters a sound which it does not recognize. And you can be aware and pay attention to the tonus of the muscles of the mind. Yeah? And perhaps through the pituitary gland, it impacts the rest of the tonus of the muscles of the body. And same as you operate, I told you that I'm in the process of introducing mind asanas. So, as much as you go perhaps to Shavasana or other asanas to relax for this body form, the mind has a form of itself. Yeah, inner separation between body and mind. Yes? And what I've discovered through I don't know meditation, and that's the second, in a way, the second example, because it was just the asana. I don't know, and I discovered something. I realized the tension of the tonus, yeah, so the tonus of the muscles of the mind. Many other things that I'm not consciously aware. I'm aware unconsciously, yeah, that they are there. I trust it. Because I see it when it speaks now to you. Yeah, that I'm aware of the tonus of the muscles of the mind. Later on, we might go to speak about the tonus of the muscles of the solar plexus, perhaps. Yes? Step by step. Now, in this 1 minute example, and you can be aware by a first self-observation, svadhyaya, self-study, about the tension of the muscles of your mind. You might want to call it brain, but I call it mind. Yeah? Since, in a way, brain controls different functions. And in this only 1 minute, yeah, of Hebrew, now, you'll see, when you look at people, and you'll take them in, I believe that you will see, you will sense, you can sense their tonus of the muscles of their mind. On one hand, to release the tonus of the muscles of the mind seems, because it's almost invisible, it's not. It's very visible and tangible. But it seems a harder task, because try to operate in what seems to be it's easier, an invisible substance. It's quote unquote easier. It appears to be in the kosas, in the gross layer, that it's easier to tell someone, release the tonus of your biceps or triceps, or the tension within your abdomen, or the gross layer. Now, if you're able to get people to release, again, balance would be perhaps more accurate. The balance, because we're required to maintain the correct level of tension. No, generally for each individual, not hyper, not hypo, but one person's tension is another person's hypertension, and one person's tension is another person's hypotension. Now, if you manage to get through mind asana, because the tension there is much more dominant and strong, if I may put it in these words, than the tension of the body. The body, it's more accessible to get it to relax, just lie down and that. But if you get the mind, and I may talk later on about the kosas and the penetration of the layers there, and we'll talk in this language, that if you are able to get someone to allow them through mind asana to release the tension, if it's hypertension, or actually increase the tension, the tension, when someone is in a hypotension, his level of awareness is very low and dull, tamas. So you increase to balance, or it's rajas, it's hypertension, according to what you perceive. And you're able to balance that tonus of the muscles of the mind. You see how that's a far, far deeper layer and impacts the muscles of the body as well. That's what I perceive. And thank you, because I didn't know that that's what I perceive. But I trust that when a voice comes, it will talk what it needs to talk. And that's another level of yoga. It is being done also in the yoga. That's why we speak. That's why we speak through a yoga class. That's why we speak through a human design class. That's why we speak in a way. And if you're attuned, because a couple of minutes ago I went with the yoga, with the Hebrew yoga, with the yoga sounds, but also the English. If you speak English or French, or you're in front of someone and you both speak German, or the refined language that you agree on, but you don't understand the concepts, the composition of the sounds, then also their tension builds up. Tension builds up. And we are creatures that are based on tonus, muscles, perhaps body, and mind, and emotionality. We can get to emotionality perhaps soon. I've introduced already one concept of the sympathetic parasympathetic mind, where people more talk about the sympathetic parasympathetic nervous system, which is actually can also be, because nervous system is associated with the emotional solar plexus. But there is the parasympathetic sympathetic of the if you separate it and look from the disintegration of the spleen and of the solar plexus, it's quite. We can actually break that down a bit further. You might be able to do it with your analytical, rational mind, and maybe bring it to a level of efficiency where someone will be able to assimilate it in this illusion of separateness in your own mind. But I've taken all of this through I don't know, revealed so much to me more than I'm aware of. Much more than I'm aware of. And it comes in due time. And you see how much tension, if you just, let's say you and Fabian, because I don't know, you both speak French, and you start speaking German to her. You can see how we're afraid of these aspects. That's my term of, again, fear, anxiety, not being understood, switched to a hypertension of the muscles of the mind, where the appearance of hypotension of the muscles of the mind is actually when I cannot hear anymore, and because I really don't understand you, in a way, It's just both sides. It can switch in actually a moment from hypertension to hypotension. Yeah. Same as when the ATP, the muscles are the parasympathetic nervous system operates, and then after this excessive hypertension, it has to rest because it's not used for that kind of activity. Now I told you I'm just doing mind asanas, and so the first example was English. To really with a known language, with an understood language, to reach the deeper layers of the mind. Now with the second example is taking a language. We can try that again. Yeah, ready? So that's for someone who doesn't speak, who doesn't understand, or doesn't realize he understands Hebrew, because he can listen to the tone of the voice and he can get exactly what is there. And if you stay long enough, 1 year, 4 years, 7 years, 1 second, he'll get exactly what he needs to get. But the muscles of the mind, they get hypertension. It gets at tension, but we don't know where to address this tension, because we are beings that are pressured, and there is a pressure, and then there is the the phenomena of releasing this pressure. But I don't understand. Instead of just continuously staying present to that and let time do its thing, like babies, they take their time. They have no other choice. As adults, we're in the illusion that we have another choice. So babies, they listen, and they repeat the sound, and they listen, and they repeat the sound, and they cry until they get it at one point. We don't teach them to speak. They learn. Now, if we bring that to adults, I believe also something will change in the level of what people might call psychosomatic diseases, or what actually people go to therapies of the body, and just something I kind of present here. And it's very simple, but one has to be arduous. Like, people are accepting that there is a yoga asana practice nowadays because it's commonly known in the collective. So they accept it. Yes, they accept it. They come, they do this asana, they see many other people doing it, they trust it. That if they'll do Adva Mukha Svanasana or Surya Namaskara, and or they will do Salamba Sirsasana. They trust it because it's collectively accepted. Many people are doing it, so it might have something to offer. Okay? But to touch the intangible, which is very tangible, the mind asana, very few people are capable of doing it. And when I was working in IT, in computers, I had a job as a software consultant to implement a software that actually alerts people before the problem arises to the surface. Funny, huh? I was selling a product that alerts the technical team before a problem occurs in the business aspect, like on the surface when it really where it really matters, and I'm in a way doing the same, but with my own software. So life is funny, and again, until let's call it the patient will be able to come to me and trust it, because the patient has to trust the therapist, the yoga teacher, the Feldenkrais teacher. It has to trust you. It has to, for a moment at least, to surrender to what you have to offer, because most people, they come with imbalanced levels of tension. Physically, mentally, emotionally, we might call it even spiritually. Spiritual complacency is also part of that. Yeah? A deeper layer than emotionally, mentally, and physically. So if you get someone, and again, there are many ways, like my brother, when I think about him, how he will be, how he will interpret these sounds, actually. Talk to me about Mila Guf Neshima, a word, body, breath. Word, body, breath. Now, we go, as Nancy Stark Smith termed for me, the concept of simple, complex, simple, simple, complex, simple, complex, simple, complex. We just fluctuate there. That you'll discern whatever you're here to discern, whether one is capable, and especially people who were born on what I refers to the quarter of mind, of initiation. They're built eventually for mind asana, because they've realized, they've grasped something about the mind before anybody else did. It might surface eventually to be a service to initiate people through the unknown to only maybe at age of 50, in our illusion of time. So first example was taking a known language. Speak to the person, as Guruji and Mataji, they tell me, before you give the hand, and you hold the hand, with some people, their tonus of the mind is so tense, they're not even ready to put the hand in my palm. They're so, they lack the trust to release for their bodies. That's what I interpret. And so I first sometimes speak to them, because I don't know, on one hand it creates, for many people, I don't want to say all, maybe most, actually it raises immediately the hypertension, but that's what happens to people in daily life, actually, when they communicate with their partners or colleagues or children, and it happens when a parent talks to, communicates with his child, and the parent forgot that he was a baby once. Yeah, really, because the mind has taken it astray, and we're not really connected to these roots of our memories. We don't know that we know everything, because there is hypertension also with the goal of, as being adults too, whatever, get the baby to be quiet, or, to really want the baby to feel well, and we are under pressure with responsibility too, But we understand everything, and if we just trust time, we see things happen. But one has to speak the baby language first. But most parents are not ready for that. I've seen it, and the baby speaks from the moment it comes to the world. And we go very fast to this what seems to be a complex language. Actually, it's the baby speaks. Like, if you listen to a baby, it seems like he speaks such a complicated language, right? Because this it's like so gross, not refined like our English, Hebrew, Hindi, French, German, civilized language. But the baby speaks, and one who listens knows that. Now, if you take it to people you quote unquote don't understand or don't know, you can actually penetrate the layer where you understand everything. Yeah? But patience is required. Patience is required, and so the first option is you speak and it's the same language, English for that case, we call the refined language in this case of the sounds. The second option is to observe with yourself what happens first with you, svadhyaya, self-observation, when you don't understand the language of the other. Yeah? Not to try to resolve, not to do anything. Yeah? Not to do anything to begin with. To observe the sensation of when you meet a language that you don't know, or you think you don't know, because if you listen and you practice it with babies, you realize you know exactly. It's just you in being in a hurry to get rid of the pressure, physically and mentally. We're squeezed between pressures, you know. We don't stay with it. Our mind goes running around with its refined sounds to try to get a solution. While you know exactly what to do. If you take that to relationship with adults, you can also apply it there, the mind asana. And here I speak to you because you've got a different level of comprehension, of listening, and of applying. Vini yoga, application of yoga. Now, yoga, the unity between body and mind, between oneness and separateness. Yeah, and so this is just as an example, as an exercise, because if you take it to a safe environment and actually experiment with it with someone when their tonus of the mind is balanced, is not hypertensed or not hypotensed, you can actually practice, and especially for someone who knows several languages, Hebrew, English, French, German, Hindi, whatever language, and if you find that you change it and you actually concentrating on the gift of not being able to understand, because it's a gift. For most people, it's a curse, but it's a gift. Because it's a baby mode, actually. And if you look at the tonus of the muscles of the baby, you would get what I'm talking about. Again, generally, I'm not talking about a baby that was born maybe with what appears to be a hyper-tensed tonus muscles of the body, not taking it now to the tonus of the mind, because it's like so soft. In my interpretation, of course, the tonus of the muscles of the mind of a baby. My interpretation, of course. Maybe someone would see something else. Yeah. Maybe when the baby screams, I don't go to that yet. I'm kind of elaborating on the phenomena, and so the first example was to communicate in a language where the two sides actually speak that same refined language, English for that case, and you observe what you don't know and you stay with it. Yeah? Now you sense it, you see the grace within it, and you let time do its job. Again, understanding, knowing, making sense. I don't go into this refinement of pressures, but you let time do its job. Most people, they don't let time do its job, so there's a lot of pressure and tension between couples, between a boss and an employee, because time is the illusion of time pressures us. Yeah, when we have a goal or an aim towards something. Again, no good or bad. Yeah, you enjoy pressure, hypertension of the muscles, of the mind, of emotionality. Great. I don't buy that, of course, because I see people, they look to feel generally good. Yeah? And when there is a hypertension and an imbalance, they go to doctors, they go to physicians, they go to yoga class, Feldenkrais class, to, meditation, They take medicine, drugs, allopathic, homeopathic. Now, the second option was, I'll go again with the Hebrew, okay? So you can sense your level of tension of the muscles of the mind, the tonus of the mind, which again, you might see how your parasympathetic and sympathetic mind operate. Yeah? And we would eventually, let's say, have to agree what the mind is to a certain level. So we can point the finger at that sound. Okay? So again, ready? In Hebrew. And again, you might pay attention to the tonus of the muscles of the mind, as well as the tonus of the muscles of the body. What operates with what, what perhaps comes first, because it's both ways. You might relax the tonus of the muscles of the body, and the tonus of the muscles of the mind will follow. You might relax the tonus of the muscles of the mind, and the tonus of the muscles of the body will follow. Again, as one who brings, you just look at that with people who come to meet you. Sometimes you address from a body, sometimes from a mind, sometimes from nowhere. That will be the second option, the third actually. So in Hebrew, again, this is for people who don't, let's say, speak Hebrew, who don't understand the refined sounds, and are pressured, because mind is pressured to understand. So another try, okay? Another go. And just before I go into it, I'm not giving even any guidance whether to release the tension or increase the tension. Decrease the tension or increase. Simply pay attention. And you can take it to a simple level of vipassana, observe your sensation and observe your breath. But we are human beings who like simple, complex. Yeah, that's how I experience humanity, and so I'm just kind of bringing it as an interpretation. Yeah, simplicity. I don't know meditation. Simplicity, vipassana practice. Simplicity, strategy and authority of human design. Simplicity, Hatha Yoga Anushasana. Simplicity. Yeah. But it's already complicated because we had to come to hear about all the asanas of the yoga. We had to come and hear about I don't know meditation. We had to come and hear about strategy and authority of human design. We had to come and hear about the movements of Feldenkrais. We had to come and hear about Vipassana and Goenka that will tell us to observe the breath and observe the sensation and have to go through the 10 days course. Yeah, we are not really ready for the simple. Yeah. We are not. We went way into the complex, and it's okay. We're living in our complex. אוקיי, היברו. אז עכשיו, כשאני מדבר בשפה אחרת, ואפילו מי שמבין את העברית, יכול להרגיש איך הטונוס של השרירים, של המיינד, השתנו כשעברתי לשפה אחרת. גם הטונוס של השרירים של המיינד שלי השתנה. שפת האם שלי היא שפה עברית, ואנגלית היא השפה המשנית, ונדרש איזה אנרגיה. אני שומע את זה בטון של הצליל של המילים שלי. עברית שזורה בתאים שלי, פיזית ומנטלית, גם רגשית וגם רוחנית, במשך, שוב, לפחות איזה 20 ונגיד 7 שנים פלוס כל, כן? כלומר, הבסיס. והאנגלית מצריכה טונוס של השרירים של המיינד ברובד אחר. אני ממש שומע את זה בטון שלי. אני שומע את זה. הרבה יותר נרפא לעומת האנגלית. זה מעניין מבחינתי להבחין, לעשות את הניסוי הזה בעצמי כרגע, שזה מה שאני מרגיש וחש ומפרש. ומה שאחר בכלל, זה גם מרתק, מה הוא חווה אצל עצמו, מה אתה חווה אצל עצמך, מה את חווה אצלך, כן? ואלו שלא מדברים בכלל עברית. ואז קורה משהו לטונוס של השירים של המיינד שנלחץ כדי להבין, קורה שם משהו. ובעקבותיו או באחריו קורה גם טונוס של השרירים של הגוף. וזהו, התבוננות מעניינת שתהיה לנו. ובכלל, אם אני עובר לשפה נוספת שאני מדבר, ich kann Nederlands maar als ik moet iets zeg maar compliceren praten, ja, nu de toon van mijn stem een beetje zachter, maar ik heb de aandacht mee. En misschien ik kan kijken wat gebeurt met jij als ik ga wisselen tussen de talen. En nu heb ik de aandacht om gewoon misschien langzamer te praten en ik kan niet snel praten. Misschien dit is mijn manier in Engels te praten. So as I go back to English and I was kind of aware of something in my own tone of voice, and you're aware of I don't know what's first. First you're aware of what you interpret that happens to me, but you're actually aware of what is happening to you, especially because it's always late. It's out of my body, the voice. You don't really know, because when the voice hits you, it hits your eardrums, and it's already your interpretation. Your mind might say, oh, I interpret the tone of the voice. You're always late, you see? We're always late with our perspectives. You might look at someone and you suggest he's tired or sick, but he's coming through the light, in the speed of light, but it's still not in the now, you see? Why our perspectives is always late. But it doesn't mean we cannot reflect our perspective with any sense. The sun that arrives, and until it arrives, and again, speed of light, speed of sound, and we can play with that concept. We take things often for granted. So as I kind of switch between languages, you actually always interpret. That's maybe my one assumption I've got. The tonus of your own body muscles from someone else. You might think it's the other, but it's yours. That's why we're impacting and influencing one another. And you're actually the tonus of the muscles of your mind. It's hard to grasp for most people, this illusion. I didn't plan to reach this point where I'm talking about just my eyes see the car or the shop or the light, and my ears catch the sound, and maybe my nose, I may talk about the spleen, catch the smell, and my mouth the taste, and we might talk about the solar plexus senses, and that's part of the illusion and time and speed, but that was not the main let's say theme of my recording today. It was mainly about communication in more complicated sounds as we take one language of that we both agree that we speak, English for that matter, and then one language that one of us don't understand, and we just stay with it, with the tonus of the muscles of the mind in not understanding, in not knowing, not releasing the pressure by what did you say or why or where, but staying with the tonus of the muscles of our mind, because we do understand. But it takes time to trust that we do understand, because mostly we're in a hurry to get rid of the physical and mental pressure in our lives, either the physical pressure in maybe what appears to be a body-oriented movement, or the pressure to express, speak. And these pressures are pressuring us, and they're doing their job, and it's not that we actually release them in the right timing. They are released when they are released. Maybe when they're hypertensed, maybe when they're hypotensed, maybe when they're balanced, tensed. Yes? We're always late to the experience, and it's okay. The third option, the last one, is actually the option of to really, and this is the, well, let's call it the sound of silence. And the third option is to observe and that came to me to begin with the Vipassana practice. So, but most people, they don't take it to their daily life. Really, most Vipassana practitioners that I've met, they do not take that to their daily life the way I grasp the illusion. Yeah, maybe they do. So the second option, Vipassana suggested, the noble silence, as you can sense what happens to the tonus of your muscles of the body. You can also what happens to the tonus of the muscles of the brain, of the mind. I call it mind, and again, like not brain. Also emotionality, but I'll leave it for now, not to talk about it. So I'm not necessarily gonna suggest now to go to the what I believe is a mind phenomena to let's get us in a rigid framework of the mind telling us that we have a routine from 4 o'clock in a Vipassana course until 9 o'clock when we go to sleep. This I feel is mind-oriented rigidity that is soon to pass away from our world, my belief. But that's just me, how I interpret the illusion. And since I'm experimenting and experiencing already for a couple of years, no alarm clock, no external objects to, again, except maybe I don't know if it's the weather or the sun or the seasons, yeah, but not a man-made gong to wake me up. Again, the bird is sort of a gong, and but you'll get what I'm telling you. But again, we are kind of what I take from Lao Tzu. We're not allowing the natural movement, and I don't know. You're okay to argue with it; it's no problem. But from Vipassana practitioners, I experienced that's one of my explanations of why many people are not able to apply that in daily life because different framework, and I don't know, it's not that I'm not establishing other framework unconsciously, or perhaps I don't know meditation rigid framework, but just see wherever you go. And that's just my experience from last 4 years, that almost no alarm clock, know when to go to sleep, but mind is afraid of this. The tonus of the mind goes hypertension when it hears the word kel. It's no framework, but it's actually that from the order that there is hypertension and all of the diseases. Yeah, because we are trying to put let's say circles, balls in squares, or squares in triangles, and and it doesn't work. It doesn't operate. And that's my interpretation of the illusion. Yeah, and you've got yours. And trust it. Trust your interpretation, experience of the illusion. And but I meet most of you, and I trust when I'll keep telling you that you're trying to fit triangles into squares and squares into circles, and you know it. You know your levels of tension, but you're afraid, most of you. So the first example is just, again, it's continuously to pay attention. You've got your karmatic path to go through. So the third option is at any time when you see your body goes to that. Okay? By the way, you might see yourself going to a Vipassana course, and you can only watch that happens. But nonetheless, it's for me the external these type of external limitations are anachronistic. They're bound to they're man-made, and they're man-made. That's what I gotta say. They're man-made, and what man makes is it has in the time frame, its duration is not long. You can see it in any build. It's real, whether it's 1,000 years or 5,000 years. It's not long. Yeah. And once you reach the source of nature, you see what actually is durable over time. Most people do not know that, but it's okay. So the third option is, nonetheless, I take this, what it introduced, the noble silence, and when you see your body goes, because it's always happening all the time. Also in these 55 minutes, there was most of it was silence. But because mind gets attached to movement, it doesn't realize that most of this recording was actually constructed of silences. Yes? Most of it. The sound exists on the silence and the gaps. And so the third option is watching the at any time. No sitting, no timing, no exercise to keep it for an hour and a ditan and all this bullshit. Because for me it's bullshit. It's external limitations that are man-made, anachronistic, and they will pass away. They will not last the nature's time. My interpretation of the illusion, and they will not. They will not. And same as anything that I create in the illusion of me being a human being. What's not on the natural order, and I really don't know what it is. Yeah, time will tell. Only time will tell. So the third option is watching the tonus of the muscles and the tone of the body and the tonus of the muscles of the mind as we go into Now, this was a relatively short example. Anybody who experienced Vipassana, I believe, knows what I'm talking about. It. What happens to people who have not practiced Vipassana, and mainly for me, the aspect of noble silence, rather than the practice itself of to get the mind with mind tools to try to change reality by going and anapana. It's changing reality because you try to tell your mind what to do by telling it to bring the mind itself to the breath and to the sensations. You're trying to direct reality. And that's why it will not last eventually, because that's not the role of the mind. That's how I interpret the illusion. And even now I sense what has changed in me in just this couple of minutes of silence. And perhaps when we'll be, let's say, truly silent, we will not be humans anymore. We will not be humans anymore. That might arrive eventually, yes, as evolution will realize, because what evolution does is actually, in how we talk about evolution, that it just takes away what it seems to, if we anthropomorphize evolution, it takes away what it seems as unnecessary, as I don't know, if superfluous or inefficient or unnecessary. That's how genes operate. And once the genes will spot, in the process of our evolution, that we are excessively talking, and it's as unnecessary as perhaps one of our pinkies in the feet. Maybe you say pinky is still relevant, but we have described how evolution operates and what it actually brought, and taken in our story of what we tell ourselves of this evolutionary story, that it will also, I believe, realize at a certain point that talking is unnecessary. And then it might take another million years, or 8 million, or 1 billion. Then it will actually, in the evolutionary process, so you don't have to worry, it won't come in your illusion of a lifetime. But you can already sense that what it does, and in our daily life, since evolution has not taken that away, that ability to express sounds, refine sound, and so on. But you can see consciousness around. You can see how it's actually very superfluous, very inefficient, very dull, very unuseful, and evolution will take it away from us eventually. My belief. That's only how I interpret the illusion. And it's not that we're here to be silent. No. I'm still a human being. But once evolution will do its thing, it will take our capacity, it will zip it, because it's only seeming to human as an efficient tool with a goal and all of that. But nature doesn't care for humans. Humans cannot save nature, or humans have vanity, and you can actually observe your tonus of what it happens if you stay like in daily life. How it actually gets the tonus of the mind, the tonus of the muscles of the mind of others that actually know you to be a speaking person. Because if you would be mute, they would accept that. If you would be born like that, or so on. But you see that they don't accept it. Now, I'm not saying when to speak, when to be silent, when, what, all of this. No. Just kind of pointing out something for you to observe. And be aware of your level of tonus of the muscles of the body, and the level of the tonus of the muscles of your mind. And like I mentioned, I might go at a certain point to the tonus of the muscles of the emotional system. And you might see it when there seems to be a decision coming at your hand, and you're in the illusion that something has to happen. You can see the tonus of the muscles of your body and the tonus of the muscles of your mind. and also the tonus of the muscles of your emotionality. So was described in a way through human design of, okay, you're emotional, okay, wait until the tonus of the muscles of your emotionality rest at ease, not hypertensed. And only inside there is a movement that tells you that there is no hypertension or hypotension on the other side, you know. So good luck in finding your balance through any means possible. It's just a game, and evolution does its trick. And again, whether you exercise that with people close to you, with language to language that you understand, and see the levels where you don't understand, and you just stay with it, or you don't know, and you watch the tonus of the. It requires perhaps a safe laboratory with people who are allowing that. If you're with partners who are not allowing because there is an aim to, we will continue with the hyper levels of tension. And then once there hyper level of tension, what happens with nature? It will arrive at a hypo, at crash, because this is how life operates. In order to balance, hyper turns to hypo. Yeah? And so language to language that you might talk, then a language which you don't, and you can practice that. You might practice it in your own way anyways, yeah? And then also perhaps with silence, which again, I'm not stating, because once you're beyond that, you just move in life from this to the other, but it seems some people require different techniques, and it's okay. When I take the palm of someone, and someone told me, oh, I don't exist, but my palm is there. What do you mean I don't exist? No, you. So when I take you in my palm, most people, they don't know that's it. World is solved. They go about to their business and they don't trust the reaching hand. They don't allow themselves even to be beggars, If people would, that's, I believe, how I interpret the illusion. If people would take this and reach the hand, not talking, just hold it, solving problems that do not exist. But until you will not believe that, it will only get more complicated. This was part of the experiment of the 6-7 month shop of meditation, and some of the interpretation of my illusion, and it served what it's here to serve. There were about 30-40 people, I don't know how many, came. Again, I believe that when they go to the streets, they forget all of that, because noble chattering and hypertension or hypotension, and people are not paying attention, so they're paying with hypertension and hypotension, and an balanced movement. And it's okay, because things are perfect as they are. And I guess until evolution will take it away from me, I will keep at due times to talk about these phenomena. And I gave 3 examples of the language to language, English to English, or if you don't speak, then the second option of Hebrew to English, for that sake, for English speakers, or any language which you don't, and you just stay with it. And the third option is the silence. You can start with the third option, but maybe you don't need to do all of that, because I'm actually perpetuating something that will not stand the test of time, because it's also man-made thought. And maybe you're just ready to really just watch. Silence, language, different, all of that. But I believe you don't. You are not ready to watch all of this. So good luck with the hypertension and hypotension of the muscles of the body, and the hyper and hypotension of the muscles of the mind, and the hyper and the hypotension of the muscles of the emotionality. It is perfect as it is. Yeah? It just takes its toll on you, and you know it. when it takes its toll on you. I know it when it takes its toll on me. After all, I'm still a human being, although I am not a human being, and it's clear to me. So, you cannot get it wrong. You can pay attention.